Hey punks, Chaotic here.
And you got Figure to the producer chair.
Welcome to Beyond the Pit, the show where we talk about music, life, and mental health issues directly with artists, experts, and survivors. Joining us for today's edition of Beyond the Pit, UK-based blues and rock singer-songwriter Ben Hemming. Figured, give him the rundown.
Hey punks, just a reminder, you can find all this and all of our Beyond the Pit interviews on the official RockMental YouTube channel. Also, you can find them on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Also, be sure to follow at RockMental Official on pretty much all of the social media platforms to get notified when the latest Beyond the Pit episode drops. Chaotic?
All right, let's get into it. Ben Hemming is a London-based blues singer-songwriter that has taken a very prominent role in raising awareness for men's mental health issues in the UK. His latest single, Devil May Care, addresses much of the struggles and emotions that have led to staggering suicide rates among men. On top of the amazing mission, Ben's music freaking rocks. You don't have to be a fan of the blues to get enthralled by the heavy beats, the master guitar work, and the grooving lines. I know I did. That's why I featured Ben's music during last week's live stream of RockMental. So I'm so stoked to welcome Ben Hemming to Beyond the Pit. Hey, Ben, thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. No problem at all.
Awesome. First off, you know what? We're huge fans, not just of your music. Your music's amazing. Talks a lot about the raw issues and talks a lot about, a lot of the emotions a lot of, particularly men, go through. And on top of that, being an advocate, so it's one thing to make the music about it, but to actually, walk the walk and use your platform is just awesome. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Cool. So, first up, you have an amazing story. I've gone through your bio, your website, heard a couple of different interviews, and just your story, I think, resonates with a lot of people, including me. You talk about being sort of in this crossroads in your life and needing that change. Tell us what sort of prompted you or what helped make that decision to take such a huge plunge, and talk about what that plunge was.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was kind of like a bit of a tricky point in my life. I had to split up with my girlfriend at the time. And, when you get that feeling, you're just sort of coasting along, but you're not really kind of doing what you were put on the earth to do. You know what I mean? So I felt like, I just needed to kind of, sometimes even like a small thing, like a change of scenery can make a really big difference. Or just a break from your mundane routine or whatever. And but for this, I decided that, the States was somewhere that I'd always wanted to go.
Okay.
A lot of musical influences were sort of coming from there, from like the blues and, Delta blues and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just decided that I wanted to basically travel around the States for a couple of months. I really just sort of flew out there, bought this sort of crappy acoustic guitar in a pawn shop over there, just because I didn't want to bring anything, whatever, because I was going to be staying in some kind of cheap budget places. So, and I just started playing around the States, really. I sort of started, I think it was like I did New York. I worked my way around to like Memphis, Nashville, New Orleans. And New Orleans was just like, I think that at that point where maybe some things sort of started to click with me musically. And I think like one night I was just kind of a little bit drunk on the main Broadway, where they have a lot of kind of buskers, really, but the buskers in Nashville is just like, another level, know. And there was this guy, he was like playing drums with his feet, and he had like this. I later realized it was called like a diddly bow.
Oh yeah.
But it was like sort of made from a broomstick, with a cigar box. and he just had it in an amp, and he was just rocking out, and it was just like, yeah, just crazy, yeah, crazy cool. And yeah, it's just kind of sort of clicked to me. I actually picked up, like, I think I might have it with me here actually.
Yeah, let's see it.
Yeah, it's kind of, I picked it up. I don't know if you guys can see it.
Oh, there he is. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I think this is from New Orleans, which
Oh, wow.
I mean, this I've had this now, I don't know, maybe 5-10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, probably kind of out of tune. Yeah. But it was cool, you know. I was like playing it with a slide. I did a few sort of gigs back when I made it back into London. And yeah, I just wrote some songs on the road, and they sort of became my first sort of album that I really put out there. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
yeah, it's tremendous. I mean, I know for a lot of people, I mean, for me too, I was kind of stuck in that job I wasn't particularly enjoying. And to make that decision, I mean, it takes a lot, right? And I think for a lot of us, just getting that nudge or just getting that, you know, taking that first step or just diving right into something is hard. So, I mean, it's awesome how, you know, you were able to do that, come over here, you know, sort of not just find your musical self, right? But also find your self almost, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think like you know, I mean, it's a cliche a little bit, but you know, traveling, you do, especially when you spend a bit of time on your own, you know, soul searching on the road. Yeah, you sort of analyze your life a little bit and think, okay, you know, you've only got one shot. This is, you know, unless we get reincarnated as, you know, something, but I'm not really going to bank on that. So, you know, you got to just go for it, I think. And I just felt like, you know, I was playing music before, but it didn't really sort of, I guess I hadn't found my voice until that point.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of found my voice, and I was like, okay, you know what, this is something, although I've been playing with it throughout my life, music, I was kind of like, okay, this is something I really want to dedicate my time to. And, you know, everything else kind of fitted in, and it was just like, okay, when I got back to the UK, it was just kind of like, okay, how am I going to make this work?
Yeah.
Which, that's another story altogether. You know, but you find a way. I think probably like the it's kind of a bit random, but I was watching once this sort of lecture from, I think it was Jim Carrey, I think. And he was saying that you can still fail at the safe option.
Yeah.
And kind of really resonates to me, because you can just be something that was like, I think he was talking about his like father was wanted to be a comedian or wanted to be a performer, but he decided to be an accountant because it was like the safe thing for his family. But then he got made redundant, he got laid off, and he spent a lot of time, he wasn't able to look after his family financially very well. So yeah, things like that, it just makes you think, yeah, you know, you just got to do it, because the safe option can still fail, you know.
Yeah, we talked about it before on the show too. Like, you know, sometimes inaction is just as risky as action.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely. And so that's tremendous. But how, you know, you're able to say, I'm going to go fly across the ocean to the United States and to go do these things. You know, I mean, for me, I started a podcast with my brother and my nephews, you know, so you know, for it looks different for same people, but it's that same sort of like, I needed to do something, right? That need that push. I guess so from there, like, you know, talk about your music and how it's evolved. I mean, you've had a few albums come out, you've been gigging, you've been playing some shows. Like, talk about how that's been going.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've done probably like 5 albums, I want to say. So I guess I've found my voice and confidence in the studio now. The first time you do an album in your studio, you're a bit like, oh wow, it's can be a lot.
Yeah.
The first, like the first album I released was kind of like almost home recorded, but then the second one, City of Streets, I went over to sort of Norway because I had a cousin over there who's a producer and wanted to produce my album. So we went into this huge studio. I think it was like modeled on like one of the big LA ones.
Oh wow. Cool.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was right next to sticks. It was winter time. It was like 3 foot of snow outside.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it was like yeah, the live room was just huge. It had a huge live room, and it was just me and this 3-piece band just out this records. But yeah, I think I've been fortunate to be able to be pretty consistent, putting out albums maybe once a year. Kind of, that's what I aim for, one a year. But
Yeah.
so far I've managed to do that most of the time. And then just gigs. I've been sort of lucky to play throughout Europe. Last year I performed at Glastonbury. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Glastonbury.
Quite a big festival over here in the UK. Probably one of the biggest. And things have just kind of gone on a sort of upward trajectory. So that's what we can aim for, I think, in music. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just finding your, Spotify and listening to your music. I mean, just you can really tell like the care and the attention you go through your music making process. And something that was interesting, we talked about, you gave an interview to another podcast a few years ago. And you talked about how you start off as more of I guess like an indie rock sort of artist, and then of course you come to the United States, you find the blues, and I guess hearing your music, you can still hear some of those rock influences. Talk about how you sort of marry those two into your incredible sound.
Thank you. I think like I guess I just started to look back at the kind of the roots of, I suppose I was doing like more indie rock, and then I sort of looked back, and then I suppose you go to rock and roll. Elvis, and Elvis, his first single was like a cover of a blues song.
Yeah.
So I feel like all sort of modern music really, it's got its roots in the blues.
Yeah.
And you can trace that back on almost like a family tree, I suppose, if you could compare it to that.
Yeah.
So I just started looking back, and then sort of got really interested in a lot of Delta blues stuff, which is kind of, maybe that was why I sort of went to certain places in the States. I went to Sun Records actually and looked around there. That was really cool. But and I think the kind of influencing and sort of the influence and marrying the two together. I'm not like a traditional blues artist. It's more fusion of, like you said, elements of rock. People have said grunge as well, for sure. And it's just, I just wanted to kind of, originality is a difficult thing in these days, because
absolutely.
How original can you be with 12 bars, or whatever. It's been everything has kind of been done. So it's kind of more, what's important to me is more to just find my voice, be honest and have a sense of truth to yourself, I think.
Absolutely. And I gotta say, your voice with your growl and like that raspiness, and then married with your lyrics, I mean, it's just, at least from my perspective, it comes out so authentic, so raw, so real. And I think that's kind of where we can probably agree, like where blues music and rock music and, even all the, punk and heavy metal and hard rock and all those things can sort of agree on, like, we're here to talk about the real stuff, to talk about the real issues about what's going on. And you're absolutely right. I'm a metalhead. You know, I jam out to Metallica and Pantera and
Yeah, yeah,
Motorhead.
yeah.
You know, but
That was,
yeah, and like you said, like you look at the genealogy, I guess, of rock music. It all leads back to the blues, right?
yeah. I mean, one of the first. It's funny you should mention Motorhead because I think that was like one of the first albums that I had. I think it was it
Yeah.
was the Motorhead one. Just trying to sort of remember which one it was. Yeah, I think it was but yeah, Motorhead, and then I think weirdly I listened to a bit of Korn at one
Hey,
point.
there you go. Love Corn.
So there's definitely and yeah, a bit of Metallica, you know, but we're talking more like 16, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I feel like it's the same. If you listen to a lot of, especially early, very early heavy metal, like even Black Sabbath or something like that, you can hear. For me, you can hear blues in there,
Oh
and
yeah.
you know, it's yeah. But if Black Sabbath came out today, I feel like there would be more rock than heavy metal, but because that's how things have just changed over the years,
Progress.
right? Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Absolutely.
no, definitely interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was interviews with like Led Zeppelin and even
Mm.
Deep Purple where they got their direct influences from Moody Blues, Muddy Waters, those types
Yeah.
of artists. So yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I like how, you know, today, you know, in 2025, you know, you're coming out with these blues tracks that rock. Like I'm there listening to blues, but like bobbing my head, almost like I'm listening to a rock album. And so
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
you know, your sound is so unique. But I do got to say, the way I was introduced to you was through Instagram, actually, you
Mm.
know, and I saw one of your posts
Yeah.
that caught my eye. You know, you were promoting your new song, Devil May Care. And in the post, you write about your sort of mission to bring awareness to men's mental health in the UK.
Yeah.
And so that was just, I remember I was probably like 11 o'clock at night. I'm just scrolling through and I see this post and I'm like, man, I gotta talk to Ben Hemming because this
Yeah.
is so important. And so kind of talk about, you know, what that statistic is and then sort of why you decided to write the song to highlight that, and B, like what sort of you're hoping to use your platform to do.
Yeah, I think it was like I think I can't remember if it was like a advertising campaign or something in the UK for the Samaritans,
Mhm.
which is like if you don't know, it's like a call line you can kind of ring if you're going through difficulties. And it was saying, yeah, that's basically the biggest killer of men under the age of 50 in the UK is suicides.
Mm.
And that was just pretty shocking to me because, you know, you would just assume it's like cancer or something like that. But no. And yeah, I think as an individual, I'm lucky that I have music because music has always been quite therapeutic for me. I
Yeah.
can sort of always found that, you know, if I was in a difficult situation mentally, I could music would be, you know, a cure for that for me.
Yeah.
So I've always had that, but obviously, you know, a lot of people don't have something like that. And with the Devil May Care, the song was kind of about a situation where you're kind of stuck in a sort of negative spiral.
Yeah.
And I think that was kind of maybe what we were talking about earlier about sort of changing the scene or breaking out and going somewhere else, even just going traveling or something like that. You know, if you get stuck in a cycle, I feel that's how people sort of almost come undone. You know,
Yeah.
especially because you can see it, especially with like homelessness as well. I feel
Yeah.
like homelessness is a lot of it is when people have just become broken, so they can't fit into the system anymore. So they're just dumped on the streets or whatever. Most homeless people are suffering from mental illness, I think. Um, So yeah, I just wanted to that song. When I wrote it, I realized kind of what it was about, and then I thought, well, I need to kind of. It's something that I think is important. I don't want it to just be sort of swept under the carpet because it doesn't seem to have. You don't see anything about it
Yeah.
anywhere, in the UK. It's just I feel like part of it is to do with I think men are seen as like, oh, you can't talk about these things, you have to be strong, um you know and I think that's a problem.
Yeah.
People don't feel that they can share their problems with even friends.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know here in, I think United States and Canada, it's the statistic here, I think, is somewhere like 75% of reported suicides involve men. And
Yeah.
so, it is such a huge issue and huge problem that
Mm,
I'm glad you're taking such a prominent role in. And I know here at RockMental, we're trying to um, provide a community for people, including men, including anybody going through some, real stuff, to be able to talk about it, and at the
mm,
same time reducing the stigma, right,
yeah.
associated
Yeah.
with that, like you mentioned. It's so important, but your song, I mean, the lyrics are heavy, but probably for a reason, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I think it comes back to that sort of therapy that I have through music,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of important to me. But yeah, it's like I always feel that almost like you say something that's really truthful and honest to yourself,
Mm-hmm.
people are going to be able to relate to that because you're not sort of candy coating it or anything like that. You're just being very raw with it. And just as a human being, if you've had those feelings, then other people have obviously had the same thing. You're not alone in feeling this, which the problem with depression is you can often feel like you're the only one. And that's why people get so isolated, I think, with it. So I think again, it's important to share that you're not the only person going through these feelings. That can help a lot as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ben, thank you so much. Talk to us about where can folks find your music and where they can find you, maybe at a show.
Yeah, so if the best place to go to our website, which is benhemming.co.uk. It's got all links to everything, and yeah, my music is on Spotify, Apple Music, all the big ones, basically. So yeah, just a Google search will bring up the man in a hat, So just go from there. Yeah, and yeah, I've got some gigs in Europe, but hopefully in the future maybe some gigs in the States. But that's kind of something I need to sort of work on
Yeah.
logistically, I think.
Yeah. Well, hey, we'll be there for sure. That's you can
Thanks.
guarantee on us. Cool. Well, Ben Hemming, thank you so much for joining us here on Beyond the Pit. Keep on doing what you're doing. You're doing an
Thanks.
amazing job. Your music rocks, and just thanks for being an advocate.
My pleasure. Great to talk to you guys.
All right. Now we have links to Ben's music pages on rockmental.com. Please go give him a follow and listen to his latest song, "The Devil May Care."
Like we mentioned before, you can find all this and all of our Beyond the Pit interviews on the official RockMental YouTube channel and on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. Chaotic?
All right. Thanks for joining us for this first edition of Beyond the Pit. Join us next time as we talk to a band that we featured in one of our first and earliest episodes of RockMental. I'll give you a hint. One of my bands. All right. We'll give you a heads up on social media, but only and only if you follow us at RockMental Official on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. All right. See you next time, punks. Chaotic out.